On March 29, 1997, in the city of Jacksonville, Florida, 3 security guards were inside a vault containing millions of dollars. Suddenly, one of them turned around and found his colleague standing behind him, pointing a gun at his face. At first, he thought it was a joke and laughed, saying, "Put the gun down and let's get back to work." But his colleague wasn't joking. He was about to carry out the biggest robbery of the century. The man behind this story was named Philip Johnson, a man who had spent his life protecting other people's money. But due to harsh working conditions and mistreatment, he began to hate his life and decided to change his reality by executing the most expensive robbery in U.S. history, managing to steal half a ton of cash, about 500 kilograms of banknotes. There was a company called Loomis Fargo in Jacksonville. This company specialized in transporting and securing money for businesses and stores inside armored vaults at the company's headquarters. The money was transported in armored vehicles, accompanied by trained guards wearing bulletproof vests. The company building was like a fortress, equipped with high-resolution surveillance cameras and thermal sensors. Despite all these security measures, the robbery happened inside the headquarters itself. The one who carried it out was none other than one of the most dedicated employees and the one most exposed to danger: Philip Johnson. Johnson was born in Jacksonville in 1964 and had worked for the company for 10 years. His job involved transporting money from stores to the armored truck, one of the most dangerous tasks, as he was the only one walking down the street carrying bags full of cash. Despite the risks he faced, including 11 robbery attempts in which he was directly injured 7 times, his salary never exceeded $7 an hour. He had no health insurance and no job security. After years of hard work, he became hopeless and began planning to rob the company. Johnson thought about the robbery for 5 months, but he only started acting on the plan in the last 4 days before the operation. Thanks to his long experience, he knew exactly how the company operated and when it was at its weakest. He realized that the best time to carry out the robbery was the day before the mid-spring holiday, when most employees left early to spend time with their families. On that day, the number of guards on duty would drop by 70%. He arranged with the employee responsible for the duty schedule to be among the few staff working during the first 2 days of the holiday. He made sure he would be accompanied by 2 new employees who had no experience and no real ability to resist. On the set day, March 29th, Johnson went on a routine collection trip with a truck driver to gather money from stores. By 6 p.m., the truck was loaded with more than $9 million. Upon returning to the company's headquarters, Johnson entered with 2 other guards to move the money into the vault. The guards were Terry Brown, who suffered from severe depression, and Dan Smith, a new and unarmed employee with a health condition that made it difficult for him to fight back. As was standard practice, all guards handed over their weapons before entering the building. However, Johnson knew that a backup gun was sometimes left in the control room. He entered the room with Smith and found the gun in one of the drawers. He didn't react or show anything. He just continued working as if nothing had happened. Around 7 p.m., as the 3 were transferring bags full of cash, Johnson asked for permission to use the bathroom. He went to the control room, turned off the cameras, put on his bulletproof vest, took the gun, and returned to the vault after retrieving a large duffel bag from the van he had bought specifically for the heist. When he returned, he pointed the gun at Brown and said, "Drop everything and get out." Brown thought he was joking at first, but quickly realized the situation was serious. Johnson ordered both guards to sit on the floor, then handcuffed their hands and feet. He moved them to a small supply room and locked them inside. He then returned to the vault and began loading the money into his bag. After filling it, he placed it in the van but decided to go back for more. Over the next 3 hours, he completely filled the van with cash. Before leaving, he went into the control room and removed all the security tapes. He then entered the Human Resources Department and took his employee file, which contained all his personal information. There were no official documents linking Johnson to the company. Since he was an external contractor, there was no formal contract between him and the company. All of his information was stored in a single file, and this worked to his advantage. His 10 years of service didn't go to waste. One of the things he did was hack into the company's security system and lock all the doors, programming them to automatically open at exactly 12 noon, giving himself the maximum amount of time possible. After that, he entered the vault and wiped all his fingerprints, then closed and sealed it tightly. He then used alcohol to wipe down every step he took and every surface he touched. Afterward, he went to his colleagues, opened the door to the storage room where they were locked, and told them, "Come with me for interrogation." Later, Brown stated that despite the smell of cleaning products, the tight space, and his shortness of breath, when Johnson asked them to leave the room, they actually begged him to let them stay inside out of fear. But Johnson insisted on taking them out, leading them one by one to the van and locking them in the back using his own key. However, when he tried to open the driver's door, he realized it was locked, and the keys were inside. With no other option, he smashed the window, and that's exactly what he did. Johnson left the company premises at midnight. An important point to note here, according to company policy, external security guards are not allowed to leave the perimeter of the building or enter the main facility under any circumstances. So they had no idea what was happening inside. Even when Johnson left, despite the van clearly being weighed down with something heavy, the back gate guard showed no interest and let him pass without inspection. As for the hostages in the van, they made no sound, kept their eyes shut, and had no idea what was happening outside. Johnson drove home, took Smith out of the van, brought him into a bedroom, and tied him up inside a closet. Before closing the door, Smith said, "Please don't leave me here for too long." Johnson laughed and replied, "Don't worry. Tomorrow, the company staff will come and let you out." He then returned to the van and drove into the forest, where he left Brown tied to a tree and said, "I tied you here because I know you have breathing issues. Here you'll breathe fresh air that will wash your lungs clean from what you endured in that room." He left him a lunchbox and added, "If you get hungry, help yourself." Oddly, Brown simply thanked him and sat quietly. How polite those guards were. Johnson's story later became the subject of a feature film and several documentaries. All portrayed the guards as having fought back and tried to protect the company. But according to sources close to the case, including Abu al-Sadiq, the employees were actually very cooperative with him. Johnson drove off and disappeared completely. The next day, when the on-duty holiday shift guards tried to enter the company, they found all the doors locked. At first, they assumed it was just a technical issue due to the holiday. But after an hour and a half, they managed to open the doors. At first glance, everything looked normal. That is, until they entered the surveillance room and found it in complete disarray. They informed the company's board, who immediately contacted the police. Although there was no direct evidence of a robbery, the vault was still locked normally. According to U.S. law, all funds in the company's custody are considered federal property under the jurisdiction of the FBI, which alone holds the keys to the vault. After completing the necessary procedures, the vault was opened at 11 a.m., and there was the shock. An astounding heist had taken place. Initial estimates put the stolen amount at $10 million. Checking the records revealed that only 3 guards had been present at the time of the theft. Investigators initially believed they were in on the robbery, and search operations were launched to find them. But within hours, a new theory emerged. What if they weren't the perpetrators, but hostages? Especially since all 3 had clean records and were considered some of the most trusted employees in the company. Sources confirmed that the company paid a large sum to the FBI to keep the matter under wraps. All employees were banned from leaving the building or contacting anyone outside. The administration did everything it could to keep the incident a secret. A scandal of this magnitude could bankrupt the company, or even shake the entire U.S. economy. Imagine if people found out. Everyone would rush to withdraw their money from banks and insurance companies in fear of losing it. But the story spread quickly, and by 8 p.m., it had become global news. Johnson had stolen $18 million, weighing 550 kilograms. During the investigation, they discovered Johnson's employee file was missing. The first step was raiding his house. There, they found Smith still tied up in the closet, in very poor condition. They also found documents and plans showing that Johnson had been planning the robbery since 1992, 5 years before the execution. He had even written sad phrases on the walls, like, "How long will I remain unloved?" and "How long will I remain without a wife or children?" indicating serious emotional distress. Later, a team of scouts found Brown tied to a tree near Blue Ridge Mountain. He was taken to the police, and then to the FBI for further questioning. The police announced a reward of $500,000 for information leading to Johnson's arrest. With such a high reward, they were confident he wouldn't get far. Days later, a police officer in Asheville received a tip about a sighting of Johnson's van. The FBI rushed to the scene with 65 investigators, but found nothing. 2 weeks later, they discovered Johnson had used fake identities to legally exit the country toward Mexico. They searched over 1,400 storage units in the region, but found no trace of the money. Even Fargo itself offered a $2 million reward for his capture, but again, no results. As a last resort, the police appeared on TV, pleading with Johnson to return, promising a plea deal that would reduce his sentence in exchange for returning the stolen money. But there was no response. Then, on August 17, 1997, on the border between Texas and Mexico, a customs officer stopped an international passenger bus coming from Mexico. One passenger claimed he had no ID, only a driver's license under the name Roger DeLauder, an American of Mexican descent. But his appearance didn't match that of a typical Mexican. The officer asked him to wait and checked the database, discovering that Roger DeLauder had a known connection to Philip Johnson. That's when they realized they had found the man. He was taken to the FBI. As soon as he entered, one of the investigators said, "That's Johnson." He had changed his appearance, growing a beard, using makeup, looking thin and very worn out. They tried everything to get him to reveal the money's location, but he refused, saying, "If the money belonged to any company other than Fargo, I'd tell you where it is. But because it's Fargo's, I swear, even if you execute me, I won't say a word." Investigators checked his new records and discovered he had rented a storage unit in New Mexico under the fake license. When they raided it, they found the money. All of it, except for $100,000 he had spent in Mexico. On the wall of the unit, the same words were written. "How long will I remain unloved? How long will I remain without a wife or children?" In a trial that lasted only one session, Johnson was sentenced to 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole, and ordered to perform unpaid clerical work for Fargo until he repaid $60,000 to the company. Thus, Johnson's dream of freedom and riches, and his hourly wage of just $7, turned into a full 25-year sentence of labor and confinement. That was our story today. I hope you enjoyed it. And you might be surprised to hear that Philip Johnson was not the last person to rob Fargo. A similar heist occurred just a few months later, but in a different location and with a stranger method. If you're interested in hearing the details, leave a comment and share your thoughts. Was it the company's mistreatment that pushed Johnson down this path? Or would he have committed the robbery anyway? If you like stories like this, don't forget to check out this video. It's even better and you're going to love it.